In a country scarcely as large as your two hands, gathered in the hollow between two vast hills, there was a woman called Morwen. To the people in the town, she was a witch, and the people of that time had no understanding of the actuality of this title. Her cottage was a humpbacked, ivy-grown with pointed roofs at the feet of the forest where dangerous lights were visible at night, and where all kinds of pungent plants gave out singular, unnatural odors. Rumors had it that she cast great spells, that she could prepare healing potions for ailing people, that she could also put spells on the worst of men. However, it is still to be said that none of the villagers were aware of the whole incident which took place regarding Morwen. It is not that they did not know that she had been alive for centuries, for she survived on the magic that she spun. It was a dark power she obtained from contract that she made with a dark power many years ago at the price of her soul for eternal life. For the years she was bored with life, with living, which she realized was not her own, and the freedom to live as she wished. She was to later live to regret that action, and as she approached her final days on earth she was desperate for a way to break the curse. That was quite autumn evening, and the sun began to lie down behind the mountain top of this world. A young girl, called Ilara, met Morwen in the woods. Aiden, Ilara's brother, handsome young man of reasonable stature, had registered severe health complications. The healers had applied all they could do, but everything failed them. Facing utter hopelessness, Ilara recalled the legends of the witch who could cure any disease that was out there in the lands. All that the patient had to endure was the fee. When she got to Morwen's house, it was not a house she had imagined it to be. The house seemed to invite the children, and there was weak, warm, golden light filtering through chinks in the walls. She knocked. Morwen opened the door just a little. Her face, she had a polite, courteous smile on lips. She was old now. Her once jet black hair had turned gray, skin white as paper. Nevertheless, one had to look at her eyes. Those eyes were bright, as if the insignificant number of years didn't affect her vision. "You've come for your brother, haven't you?" she asked, smiling sweetly like she was one of those women on TV that all the men just go gaga over. They stood silently for a minute before Ilara turned to head back to Calico, nodding to him. She couldn't help but feel nervous now. "Please, I don't know what other thing to do. He's dying. Will you help him?" For a moment Morwen watched the girl before her. "Indeed I will, but in exchange first you have got to do something for me for him. Not your wallet, not your spirit, but your rib cage. A piece of it anyway. A memory." Ilara hesitated. "A memory? What do you mean?" The witch pushed the door wider and gestured Ilara inside. "You must have heard it said that memory is a great weapon, dear child. We bear them in mind as much as we touch and feel in our body. I would take from you one that you can afford to lose that I must reduce to the least of probabilities. Something that will not make you go to bed with hunger, but will put you to sleep." Nevertheless, Ilara had a second thought but nodded her head, ready to do almost anything possible for Aiden. "All right, what memory do you need?" Morwen took her to a small and stuffy room at the far end of the building which only had a very weak power light inside. On said walls, jars that were suspended were illuminated by very peculiar, marvelous lights. There was the scent of herbs and something much more primal, evil perhaps. "This is where memories are kept," Morwen said, as if what she herself remembered was any of the tenant's business. "Now, close them and let your mind go to that moment you are willing to let go." Ilara closed her eyes. She got lost in the past meadow, the smell of the newly mown grass, and laughter of a brother. Then one overshadowed the rest of memories, which was of Aiden standing beside her on her wedding day, so beaming with pride. "They had been so young. I give you that," Ilara whispered, her voice shaking. Morwen touched her fingertips to her brow again, and a tendril of the memory was like a delicate piece of cloth ruffling up and away out of reach. The room got a little dark before the memory went into a glass jar with the lid having a little glow that looked sort of ethereal. The I spoke of was Ilara's desire, a desire she was now lacking, yet she felt not sad, but an odd sort of loss. Handing the jar to Ilara, the witch said, "This will heal your brother. But, as the old cliché says, once the picture is taken, it cannot be returned." Tears welled up in Ilara's eyes, and she merely nodded at what Ellis had said. She returned to the cottage with haste and saw her brother, who was lifeless and ghostly pale at that time. It happened when she opened the jar and great cloudy-like vapor started to fill the room, dancing around the room. It resumed its dense warmth, and the magic pressed on Ilara. Shortly after, the frightened sounds of Aiden breathing began to level out. His color returned. He opened his eyes and with a vague smile on his lips looked at his sister. "Ilara," he whispered. "You'll be fine," said she, her voice heavy with relief. But something had changed. Day by day Ilara found she had lost the clear detail of Aiden, her family, her past. All the memories of her childhood seemed to fade somewhat. The faces were quite unfamiliar, the laughter a little softer. Any contact with them was still possible, but it was as if they were moved to another plane. The act of giving had been almost like a theft, the sharing of memory as if a portion of herself followed that memory to its destination. And then on a night of full moon approach, Ilara went back in the witch's house again. The door was left ajar, and behind the slowly opened door warmth and light of candles was visible in the darkness. It was the name of the woman who had just left the room. Morwen, and Ilara whispered into the space. Seeing her, I felt that she was expecting me, and that she was the witch. There were dark pools of water in her face that offered a knowing sadness. You knew what would happen, Ilara snapped, and while she spoke her tone carried a deadly calm. What you did was you took my memory, and I never knew what it would cost. You took from me the thing I hold most dear. Morwen looked tired, her wrinkled and ageless face fell into disappointment. I warned you, child. You recall I told you that memories are the link that bind our lives on this earth together. Without them we are thrown into perdition. I didn't know what I was giving up, Ilara said. My memory of those moments is blurry now. We are talking about the times before Aiden got ill. And now I have found that I am disappearing. Morwen looked at her kindly. I also once let go of something dear to me. In exchange for being indestructible, I turned into a lifeless creature devoid of soul, of passion, of the energy of life. What we lose in such a bargain is not just memories but ourselves. Finally Ilara understood what was going on. Morwen's immortality was empty. Her magic was a thing that no longer held any life within it. The witch had been changed to a human shell of what she had once been in life, a woman trapped in the endless years and healing and able to feel the pleasure of existence, but still not free of the world. You will never. Ilara replied quietly, angry now. I want to remember. I want to live. Morwen looked tired and weary, and she offered a smile. The sense of regret it brought into the audience shock. Well then, child, this means that you have to make a choice. Ilara was standing with her back towards the witch's door looking outside, at night. For the next forest was dark. She was already aware of this, and she always knew her next step. She turned back to Morwen. I want to make a wish. A fly is actually what Morwen calls a male fairy, known in other cultures as a leprechaun or troll. Perhaps the last two originate from the misinterpretations of Irish dancing images such as this. And what is that wish? Ilara took a deep breath. She wished that you have your soul back. I want you to be free. To live. To love and to die, whatever it takes. Morwen just opened her eyes wide at this, but there was a tender hint of longing in her features. The first time I've heard such a wish. We've all been waiting since it has been so long since anyone asked for something selfless. With that the witch looked into the distance and her eyes shut. Even her old naked sculpture appeared to become more weightless, and the surrounding electricity appeared to look ethereal. And then, for a brief span of seconds, Ilara was convinced she could penetrate the shy, awkward, almost Jagger girl, transforms into woman at girl longing, with from failed to become them inside the shell of the vagrant creature before her. And then, Morwen was gone. The house crumbled into ashes and the forest as if breathing a sign of relief. And Ilara went back to her brother and the memory of love avenged in her breast. That, and she had not only saved him but released the witch trapped for 100 years in the magical energy bond. And in doing so, had learned the greatest lesson of all, real magic and not in fame or eternal life but in the things people are willing to lose for their loved ones. For Morwen it was the only freedom. Her soul could float in the winds, for the request of the endless life came with the high price. Her last wish wasn't fulfilled with a spell, but it happened to be fulfilled by the benevolence of the young women who realized that the biggest spell is love. Please like and subscribe for support.